need some more tape.
When he
What
came
kind
up
of
with
tape?
that idea,
Just regular Scotch tape.
Oh.
Thank
like,
you.
the greater DFW Metroplex has like, 8, 9 million people. It's like, might as well just be in Arlington.
So, because if they were to move Maplewood Baptist Church, I
Mhm.
think I'd be a little upset.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
But if you guys, if you don't move too far,
Yeah.
you know,
I mean, y'all are already kind of like,
in the center.
you know,
Okay, I gotcha.
Phoenix,
And then you can spread out.
Tucson's just like right there. It's not like stupid.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like,
Gotcha. That would be
for
nice.
the DFW area, I just, yeah, it just makes sense to move it
Yeah. Mhm.
to be more
So
centrally
when is he
located.
thinking about doing this?
Well, he literally wanted it to move it before our first conference, the fire breathing room, but that building didn't work out, and so it's kind of like on hold for
Okay,
now until
okay.
God
Well, the
opens
Lord's
another
gonna
door.
provide a way. You know, it
Yeah,
always
so.
does. It's gonna be the perfect door, like it always is, you know?
As a matter of fact, that's why some like additional families left our church. Is just he didn't even like say we're doing it. He just like we had a meeting with like the men, and he just like brought some stats and some reasons, and like here's what I'm thinking,
hello?
and like a couple of men were just like, oh no, that's just ridiculous, and it's like they're just so opposed to it, even though they like supposedly moved from a far off land, and then like us moving the church like literally 20 minutes east. So no, that's just too much. It is stupid.
Here
And
you go. This one's almost done, so I can give you both.
That's fine. Thank you, Dan.
yeah, since Pastor Shelley came, we've literally just lost like all the bozos and just replaced bozos with just better people. It's been great. Yeah. Because when you actually have a pastor that's like doesn't have cloudy judgment, you can get rid of all the bozos. Because all the bozos just kind of like just like back off
They get more
sometimes.
exposed.
Yeah, so they feel a little threatened, and then
Yeah.
you only have like the hardcore wolves stay that
Right.
you have to kind of
Mhm.
take out over
Weed
time.
them out.
Yeah, so.
But you know what? They're always gonna be among us.
Yeah.
No matter what, you know, unfortunately.
I still remember Pastor Anderson, like after that whole oneness thing debacle happened, like, he's like, yeah, and who was it like? Was it like Lola or something that said like that there's still people here or whatever? And he's like, whoever you are, y'all need to leave. And I just think it's like, all right, fine, just remain until they get cease and desist.
Until they leave, until they get kicked out.
Yeah.
That's what it is. The Lord warned us about it.
Yeah.
You know, it's to be expected.
Yeah. I mean.
We just gotta keep doing what we do, which is like homeschooling and the gospel and try to expose what we can.
Yeah, that was just so fun. I laughed several times during that documentary yesterday. It was like Gershway and then like our Seth, being
Oh yeah, I didn't get a chance to see it. I was working.
oh, well, I'm not gonna spoil it then.
Yeah.
It was.
Well, you know what? I already saw it.
Oh, okay.
Because Brother Paul put it on when they were going through it.
Mhm.
He uploaded it all, so you could watch it. It was like 16 hours, I think,
Oh wow.
of all the footage.
Wow.
So I was able to watch it all here and there and whatever. So I mean, now that I just gotta.
Yeah, it came together as a package that told like a really great narrative, and like yeah, just everything from like I like how he put like name cards with people so you keep up with characters because
Oh
people watching the movie.
right, didn't know, right?
Whose voice is this on the phone? It's Pastor Anderson's.
Oh yeah, oh
So
they.
I liked all the attention to
Oh.
detail, the color correction, making all
Oh.
the shots look. Because when you're shooting off, I don't know what equipment he had, but when you're
Yeah.
shooting off like phones and whatever
Right,
the camera's
right.
down all the time, he did a good job of like keeping just color correction
Wow.
seamless and just stabilizing the shots.
Yeah, he's
So
really a perfectionist.
no, it was stupid good. Um,
Very good.
that's Conrad's wife.
You know what? I don't even know half the people in our church anymore.
Oh yeah.
Because it's
Well,
so
I mean now
big.
they are running like close to 400.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I saw a lady in the kitchen the other day, and she's like, "Oh, do you know where they're saying paper towels?" And so I gave her some paper
would lose boss. Why? This is my year, man. This is my year. Yeah, something that I haven't done the past couple years. I got it. Thank you for pointing it out.
What's up with the pugs?
I'm gonna. I'll plan a trip to Sure Foundation next year, at this time next year, and they have a Russian community, and I will go there and preach the gospel in Russian. Да? All right. I love you. Goodbye.
All right, guys, we're going to be going live here in about 32 minutes for a seminar with Pastor Stephen Anderson. It's going to be how to organize a missions trip. And then after that, we're going to go into a seminar, Internet Technology and Evangelism. And those will be 45 minutes each. And then after that, we will take a short break and then come back later on tonight. But this live stream will be 2 seminars, how to organize a missions trip and Internet Technology and Evangelism. And so that's happening here in about 31 minutes. Pastor Stephen Anderson will be coming in. Thank you guys all for tuning in. If you want to call in, let people know what you think of the conference so far, please call in 480-465-1203. It's 480-465-1203. And just let us know what you think of the conference. Are you liking it? Are you being edified by the preaching? Just let us know what you think. 480-465-1203. I know I've had a great time so far. It was definitely a great time doing the screening for Deported yesterday. I really hope everyone checks out that film when you get a chance. If you want to watch it, you can go to my Patreon account and support us there on Patreon, and you can watch it on our Patreon account. And if you already donated for the movie, we have already released it to everyone who donated. So I really appreciate everyone's support. It's really pretty awesome listening to all the testimonials from everyone just telling me what they thought of the film. I'm glad people are liking it. I'm glad people are supporting it. Now we just got to go out. Now we just got to get people to go out and actually pre-order the film. So if you want to see it, that will be the next way to see it, is to pre-order. And then after we get the DVDs out there, we will be releasing this free eventually. I'm not sure on the date. We're still trying to work that all out. So stay tuned, guys. Less than 30 minutes away with seminar, 2 seminars by Pastor Stephen Anderson, how to organize a missions trip and Internet Technology. Here we go. We got a call. Hello, Paul Wittenberger. You're on the air.
Hey, Brother Paul, how you doing? This is Brother Guzman.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good.
So what do you think of the conference so far?
It's been great. I've been watching it live since day one. Great sermons so far. Kevin Sepulveda, Pastor Oscar, Pastor Anderson, Brother Segura. There's been some really good sermons so far. And Pastor Anderson was on fire just a few minutes ago. Well, I guess 2 hours ago. At the earlier today.
Awesome,
so,
man.
I'm really liking it.
Yeah, so it's been going really good, real smooth. So any other thoughts? Have you seen Deported yet?
I have not. I have not seen Deported as of yet.
All right, man. Well, I can't wait for you to see it. Thank you for tuning in. We're about to go live in about 28 minutes. Are you going to be able to listen to the seminars here coming up?
Definitely, yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for calling in. I appreciate it.
Hey, I really appreciate you doing this the live streams, Brother Paul, and no, it means a lot.
All right, man. Thank you so much for all your help.
Thanks.
All right, bro.
Bye. God bless.
God bless. All right, guys, 480-465-1203. You can call in and just let people know what you think of the conference. I really appreciate that call. He's been real helpful on doing. He just actually made a movie, so if you guys can go check that out. You should put that link in the comments, brother, of your new movie. Or your new movie trailer, I should say. But, yeah, guys, 480-465-1203. We're going to start in about 27 minutes. Hey, Shane, why don't you come talk about your new website? Right here. You can stay there.
Yeah.
Shoot, everything's buried under there. You can use these.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yeah, so over the last few months here, I've myself and a couple people, we've been working on a website called hardpreachingtv.com, which is again hardpreachingtv.com. And basically what we're doing there is we're recreating some of the pastors' websites or YouTube channels, and you can just go online there and you can look at the videos. They're uploaded pretty much as they're loaded to YouTube. We've also made on the website a part where we can live stream. So it's just we're just getting things set up here so that in the future, as you know, pastors get their channels taken down, as we all know, this is going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when it's going to happen, that they will be able to have another platform that they can just load their videos and also live stream these conferences. So when we get these hot button conferences or a hot button sermon, instead of going to the YouTube channel and possibly getting a strike or getting their channel taken down, they can just come over to hardpreachingtv.com and be able to just post it there.
Yeah, it's a great site. I mean, you put a lot of work into it. I know you have some volunteers helping you out as well. It's coming along, so if you guys could check it out, it's hardpreachingtv.com. Yeah, and it's really good. In fact, we should pull it up.
Yeah.
Go ahead and keep talking about it.
Yeah, so it's basically we've just focused on a few churches, a couple of the pastors that have expressed some interest in helping out with it. So we've just taken like a sampling. We've been loading all their stuff since beginning of December. So we have the last 2 months, pretty much everything that's on YouTube is on our channel for the last 2 months. We're also going to try and back up their earlier stuff, so just to get a complete history of the channel. So this channel, it's owned by it's owned by us, right? So it's never going to go down as long as I can keep it going. And it's online right now, as you guys can see, but it's not going to go down. You can preach whatever you want, like our friends can just preach whatever they want. There's no restrictions or anything like that. And you can see it's been laid out by churches, and then it's got the most recent here, kind of like a YouTube, and you can comment, and like I said, there's live stream where you can just go on. We've been streaming some of the conference on here through the live stream, and that's what we're doing. We're also a donation button here. As there's a lot of time involved to get like the stuff from the backup. Like some of these channels have thousands of videos, as you all know. So you can just go in there and just make a donation to the channel. Just help us out, because we we've been doing it now since it's about 7-8 months. We've been building the channel. We've had to recreate it a couple of times just for some small issues, but now it's pretty stable. And like I said, we've got a bunch of videos up there. And just moving forward, it's the site is pretty much, built, and now it's just getting all the information put up, and that's just time consuming, and there is, fees involved to keep this channel going. So, if there is an interest and people want to donate and just help us just to keep this project going, right now we don't really see a need for it, but come June when Pride Month comes out and pastors start getting taken down left, right, and center, at least they'll have another avenue, and some of their stuff will be backed up so that you guys can still have the preaching. Future, I hope to have like a download button so that you'll be able to download the sermons. So there's a lot of plans for this site.
Yeah, it's a great site. It's a great idea. I'm really glad you're doing it. I really just want to encourage people to donate. It definitely takes a lot to do this kind of things. But I just saw Pastor Anderson in here. We should get him in here and just tell us what we're gonna be seeing for the next in 21 minutes. Again, guys, if you want to call in, 480-465-1203, 480-465-1203. You can call in, let us know what you think of the show. Keep talking about it. I'm going to go get Pastor Anderson.
So, yeah, in terms of the movie, it seems that the response has been phenomenal for the movie. I encourage you guys also to, if to just donate to Framing the World for, just to help out with future projects and things that, the direction that Paul wants to go in. The movie was great. I talked to a bunch of people. For some of you that seen the live stream this morning, you know what I'm talking about. But for those of you that are just tuning in, we got a lot of reactions from people earlier in the day. Early this morning that had seen the movie yesterday on the big screen, and they were just giving their feedback on what they thought of the movie. And everybody said it was like a nail biter. It's up, down, a lot of like an emotional roller coaster, and they just really, really enjoyed it. So, all right, so we got Pastor Anderson here.
All right, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
So what have you been talking about?
We're talking about Deported, a little bit about the Hard Preaching TV site.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Yep. And then I guess we're going to be talking about what you have going on this afternoon.
Yeah, so we got a couple sessions this afternoon where we're going to be going over just some teaching and practical things. In addition to the preaching that's meant to inspire, we also want to just educate people on how to go about things like a mission trip or the online stuff, just the kind of the nuts and bolts. So at 1 o'clock, I'm going to be doing a session on how to run a missions trip. A couple of guys are going to also be speaking that have, helped us out or participated in these in the past. But I'm just going to go through, how to plan a missions trip, because I just believe that think about it this way, like what if you had like 50 churches like ours, okay? And each of them are taking like 2 mission trips a year. Can you imagine just having like 100 mission trips going on a year that are just like real soul-winning mission trips? And yeah, I mean, you'd be like every receptive country or every country where soul winning's legal and safe and available. Can you imagine just every country getting hit like multiple times a year? I mean, think about the impact that could have. Yeah. So we want to just explain tips and things that we've learned and based on experiences that we've had in Mexico, Guyana, Aruba, Jamaica, different places. So just all the nuts and bolts. And then at 2 o'clock, I'm going to be talking about using YouTube and Facebook and websites and everything to evangelize as well. But, it's never going to be a substitute for actual boots on the ground, door-to-door soul winning. But let's face it, a lot of people get saved through the internet.
That's true.
I mean, I'm constantly running into people. Every time I go to these events, I'm running into people, I got saved watching this documentary. Or I got saved watching your Once Saved, Always Saved sermon on YouTube. Or I got saved watching the Bible Way to Heaven video or the soul winning demonstration. So, I want to help other pastors and just other people be more effective with their YouTube and Facebook and social media, online sermons. And then also, I really want to highlight what some people have done in other countries. There's a guy at the conference from France, for example, Brother Pierre Paul, and he's got a YouTube channel. I think he's gotten about 350,000 views so far on his YouTube channel, where
and they haven't shut it down.
Yeah, exactly. And they've translated a lot of our documentaries and preaching into French.
Oh wow!
And so he's been really effective. Man, can you imagine if we could get that happening in every European language? Get people that are fans of our church, that listen to the preaching. Get them translating all this stuff into German, Bulgarian, Polish, Italian. You know what I mean? And just reach a whole new audience. And also these guys in France. The first year, I think they said at the Mega Marathon they had like 3 guys show up, but then the second year at the Mega Marathon they had 15 soul winners show up.
Wow.
So, and how many are going to show up this year? So, because they're putting the content online, they're starting to develop a soul winning crew.
Wow.
In places that are pretty spiritually destitute.
Wow.
So,
get, like you said, people getting saved. Like Brother Rob got saved through YouTube, and then he got me saved. So, if
you're a product of YouTube.
I'm a product of YouTube.
You're grandchild of YouTube.
I'm a grandchild of YouTube. YouTube preaching. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we just want to be firing on all cylinders. So 1 o'clock is about actually physically going to these places and winning people to Christ on a mission trip, and then 2 o'clock is about reaching them through the internet. And I want to talk a lot about the targeted Facebook ads, because Facebook allows you to target a certain geography. Wow. So let's say you have kind of an obscure language or something. You can get materials translated into that language. You can get a gospel presentation in an obscure language, and then you can just run a Facebook ad where you just target only people who speak that language, or just only people on that island or in that city or whatever. And so you can literally just spend like a couple $100 and get like thousands of people in a certain geography to watch content in their language. And a lot of times they're like, whoa, somebody made something in my language, because it's like, because I've done it with obscure languages, Tuvaluan, and
I didn't even know that was a language.
Yeah, and I'll do these wild languages, and then everybody who's on this island where they speak Tuvaluan gets hit with the ad, and then they're like, wow, I can't believe somebody put stuff in my language, and they watch the Bible Way to Heaven.
Wow.
And they
That's
get
incredible.
saved. I mean, so you can evangelize like tens of thousands of people sometimes just for a few $100.
Wow.
A few $1,000 bucks.
That's
I mean,
pretty
what's
incredible.
that worth?
Yeah,
So I
exactly.
really want to go into a lot of that. A lot of stuff that I've never really talked about, but just kind of stuff that I'm constantly doing behind the scenes, because
definitely.
it's so effective. So I just want to explain what's possible so that other people can kind of do the same type of things. We can
Again, if you
get the word out.
Like you said, if you get like 50 churches doing that, 5,
Yeah.
10 times, it's just exponential.
Right. I mean, there's like 200 countries in the world, right? And probably like half of them are a great place to go soul winning.
Right.
Some of them, it might be illegal, or they're too Muslim, or they're just unreceptive, or whatever. But let's say 100 of them are great places to go soul winning. If you got 50 churches and they're each doing 3 trips a year or something, then every country's getting hit like once or twice a year, just constantly hitting them.
That's great. That's fantastic.
I mean, and that's very realistic.
Definitely realistic, yeah.
So anyway, well, God bless, man.
Yeah,
I got to
okay.
get back to it, but stay tuned at home, people. 1 o'clock, seminar's going to start. That's only 50. Well, I better get my act together then, because that's only 14 minutes from now.
15 minutes.
All right. So Shane, you want to set up the Pawnee?
Set up the Pawnee. Oh, you're gonna play the.
Yeah. Let's set it up.
Set it up. Okay, so when this is the second trip. When Paul and I went to the Botswana, the second trip, we were witnessing to. We were just like out in the country. We were witnessing to these kids, and they had these like bags. They were like those small bags
Of caterpillars.
Well, yeah, they're like those small bag of
Hey,
chips.
there's a green pill bottle over
right
there.
there, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they had these bags, and they look like those bags that you get from for Halloween, those little small bags of chips, and they were just full of these
Dried caterpillars.
Yeah, these things, these dried caterpillars. I don't know. There's
Yeah, I don't know
right?
if you can see it.
Yeah, like it's just.
It's all right. It's all right.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
And you would just be witnessing to them, and they would just be like crunching on these things like Cheetos,
Just eating them.
and just like one after the other, and just popping them in, and you're like, what are you eating? Because you would just see this black thing, and you'd be like, what are you eating? And then like it's pane, and every kid was like pane, like they treat it like it's nothing. So Paul and I were like, what is this stuff? And everybody's saying, well, you got to try it. So we were in the market, soul winning, and we just happened to see pane, and you could buy a whole bag of this stuff
I think
for like
5 cents.
Yeah, 5 cents.
For like this huge bag.
Huge bag.
Yeah.
And so no wonder everybody's eating it because it's so cheap. And so we decided to try it in Botswana. And then there's.
And we've been trying to give it away ever since.
Ever since, yeah. We bought back.
We literally have been giving it to just people after people. And for 5 cents, we've had this huge bag of pani.
It's like they're multiplying in the bag.
I know. They're like
it's like the more we give away, we just keep seeing like it's not going down.
Yeah.
But are you going to play both clips, or you want to set up?
Well,
the second
let's. I don't think we have time. We only have time to. We're gonna play the first clip. So this is pani, guys.
Yeah, maybe we'll play the second clip later, next live stream or something.
Hey, Paul, look what I just scored at the table over there. Guess what that is?
Wouldn't be caterpillars from Botswana, would it?
Yes, it is. You want to try it? Are you brave enough? Are you man enough?
Kumo, is this good? Is this good, caterpillars? Are you sure? What's the name? What's the official name? What?
Pond.
Pond?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to try this.
I don't know.
When I taste
Oh, is it good?
Are they good?
yeah, you have to taste it.
We have to? Okay, all right,
Okay, we're
here
going
we
to
go.
try them right now.
No,
This is the first time.
yeah.
We got no water or anything, bro. What do
We got nothing. We got some candies though. We got some. We got a piece of candy. Kumo, here, you do it first, man.
Kumo's the official taste tester. Are they good? Kumo,
Are they
like
good?
a
Are
champ.
they average?
Good.
Good, all right.
You go first.
That's a big one right there. Cheers,
Cheers.
bro. Cheers.
You going the whole thing?
Yeah.
Well, not bad. It tastes like dried toe.
I'm speechless. Yeah, really.
Here, Kumo, you can have the rest.
You don't want.
Oh, it's all yours, Kumo. You have to swallow it, though. That's the key. You have to swallow it. Look, we have had the worst trip ever so far, so this is kind of like... Can't stop chewing it. I just keep chewing. You just keep eating it and eating it and eating it. It won't go away. I need some water. I need like a gallon of water right now.
I can't stop chewing it. Oh, I got crunchy.
It's horrible. You like this, Kumo? It's a delicacy. I hear it's really high in protein, so.
It's like jerky.
Oh.
Whew.
Is it over? Yep. Okay. So it turns out we've got enough time here to show the second video, and so the second video, after we ate the first one, as you can see, wasn't that great. We started telling people about us trying it, and they said we did it wrong, and they said you have to actually cook it. So we got back to where we were staying, backpackers, and we had our resident driver Kumo. He ended up cooking it for us to show us what it was supposed to taste like. So you'll see what happens in the video now. So you've seen us try the pane at the market, and we didn't really like it. So Kumo told us that we ate it wrong, and that you have to actually cook it. So we ate it dried. So Kumo right now is preparing it for us right now to try.
This is the right way.
This is the proper way to eat it.
This is the proper way. That is the proper way to eat it.
Yeah, so we're going to try that as soon as Kumo gives us the blessings to tell us that it's good. And you'll see shortly.
Are you excited?
Oh, yeah, I'm thrilled. I don't think it's going to be as chewy as it was before. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm afraid.
The suspense is killing us.
Yeah, we've been waiting here quite a bit for Kumo to give it to us the right way.
Is there a right way? Do you see how big these things are? Ooh. So, here, let's make sure.
All right, you might have to hold on that one. We've got a slight technical problem here, so just give us a second here. We'll cue it up. What happened there? So you've seen us try the pane at,
All right, here you
at
go,
the
guys.
market, and we didn't really like it. So Kumo told us that we ate it wrong, and that you have to actually cook it. So we ate it dried. So Kumo right now is preparing it for us right now to
Look,
try.
this is the right way.
This is the proper way
This
to
is
eat
the
it.
proper way. That is the proper way to eat it.
Yeah. So we're gonna try that as soon as Kumo gives us the blessings to tell us that it's good, and you'll see shortly.
Are you excited?
Oh yeah, I'm thrilled. I don't think it's going to be as chewy as it was before. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm afraid.
The suspense is killing us.
Yeah, we've been waiting here quite a bit for Kumo to give it to us the right way.
Is there a right way? Do you see how big these things are? Ooh. So, here, let's make sure we get the right one. There you go, Shane. That's yours.
No.
Okay, here you go.
I'm gonna get my own. You
Just no, you gotta get the big ones. No. I'll get the bigger one of the two.
Well, I'm gonna get more sauce, I think, because oh my god.
Kumo, yo, you gotta do it too, bro.
You're
Huh?
not doing it?
No, dude, come on, Kumo, you're in it with us. You're the chef. No, come on, we got a third spoon.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Ready?
Don't look inside. Just do it.
Oh, I can't do it. I can't do it.
Yeah. We're such wimps. Is it good, Kumo?
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine. It's fine.
1, 2. Oh, I can't.
Okay. No, you can. 1, 2.
Oh man.
It's so much worse.
Oh, I can't do it.
It's so much worse. You're not gonna spit it
I'm
out.
gonna spit it out.
No. Keep going. Oh, it's so much worse. You can really taste the juices.
I can't do it. I did it. That's horrible. Sorry, Kumo. I know you tried. I love you, Kumo.
What, did you throw it away?
No, I ate it. I ate it. I'm still chewing on it. Okay, I'm done. Oh, the mic fell off.
Otherwise, you'll end up raising background.
G.
Yeah, that's what,
D.
I think that's what Paul's issue is. Do you have the live? Do you have our live stream ready to start or what?
It's about ready. I'm finishing up right now. Mine's cranked all the way. Your gain's cranked okay too.
Are you sure? My gain's cranked? Let's go look. I don't see what the difference is. Let's go look at it.
Yeah, it looks like a W.
Yeah.
A W with the W with the little tail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like a different sound that we don't really use.
Yeah.
Like there's no equivalent.
Still, though, it wasn't super hard for me. Like they had me, Yacht, and Joe. Like either two lines.
Yeah.
John, and then guys just do.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
That's good. We'll be making progress. We got the like.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
I didn't like you said you got to count.
Testing 1 2 3. That sounds about right, right? Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Still loud? What about in here? Testing 1 2 3. That sounds too quiet there, isn't it? Testing. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2. It still seems a little.
Plus, my mind's telling me what I see.
Yeah.
Testing 1 2 3.
It's like the same Greek, like in Greek it's like
Testing 1 2 3.
We're not like we say.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Paul, what are these levels like on your end? How do you feel to be at the conference?
What is it looking like on your end? Is this
Is better? Okay.
All right, everybody, let's go ahead and get started. All right, testing. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Go ahead and have a seat if you're here for the seminar on how to do a missions trip. And if we could have everybody kind of move forward, since a lot of people are out to lunch and other places, we want to kind of make sure that we fill in here. Get started in a minute here. Come on in, have a seat. So let's go ahead and get started with a word of prayer. Father, we thank you so much, Lord, for the people that are here at this missions conference because they love soul winning and they love sharing the gospel and they have a burden for the lost. And Lord, we just pray that you would just help us now as we talk about some of these practical things about doing a missions trips, that people would get inspired and people would get the tools that they need to be effective so that many, many people could be saved. And in Jesus' name we pray, amen. All right, so I want to talk about putting together a missions trip. And what I mean by that is just getting a bunch of people in your church. Maybe you're a pastor, and so you're going to spearhead a missions trip in your church. Or maybe you're just a layman, and you want to get together with some of your buddies and put together a missions trip. And I think this is so important because we need to get out and do things ourselves sometimes if we want them to get done right, all right? Throughout the history of independent fundamental Baptists in the 20th century, there was a lot of giving to missions, a lot of raising money, a lot of faith promise, and it was directed towards sending someone else to the mission field, and we're going to pay for you. And they'd say, hey, if you're not willing to go, you know, we need to pay this guy who is willing to go. But what we're trying to do is have a lot more DIY missions, do-it-yourself missions, where instead of paying someone else to go, you just go do it yourself, okay? This is obviously different than church planting missions, and this is not a substitute for church planting missions, but this is just going in for a week or maybe 2 weeks, and you just get in there, get a whole bunch of people saved, and go back home. So this is something that anybody can do. You know, anybody can just get a week off from their job. This isn't a full-time missionary, but this is just something that laymen can get involved in. And you say, well, where are we going to send these people to church, you know, once they're done? Well, most of these places that we're going to go, they already have Baptist churches. So we would just send them to their local Baptist church. But our main goal with these trips is just to get people saved. Now, we've been doing these over the last few years, and they've been very effective. I mean, on many of these trips, we've been able to get hundreds of people saved. And not only do we get hundreds of people saved, it's very spiritually edifying for the people who go on the trip. They get the burden for missions. They get to actually have the blessing of participating and growing in the Lord, getting a lot of great fellowship, great stories, and just making the work of the Lord exciting by going on these missions trips. So the way I see it is, you know, there are about 100 countries in this world that are going to be pretty receptive to the gospel and going to be pretty good places to go soul winning. And if you think about it, if we could get like 50 churches like Faithful Word Baptist Church to each put on 2-3 missions trips a year, then you'd be having 100 to 150 missions trips going on per year just amongst our circles. Can you imagine the impact that would have if there were just 100, 150 missions trips going on per year? And that's pretty realistic. You know, Faithful Word puts on 2 or 3 a year, and if a whole bunch of other churches would do the same thing, imagine the impact that would have. You know, a lot of liberal churches, yeah, they have a missions trip where they go and hand out candy. They have a missions trip where they go and, you know, build a house for a poor person. And I'm not against those things, but I'm talking about missions trip where the gospel is being preached a lot. Book of Acts style missions trips where you're going into a town and turning that place upside down with the gospel. And so we need more missions trips, okay? So let me go through in this seminar just the practical things, okay? So first of all, the question is where, right? The first step to choosing or to going on a missions trip is choosing the place. Where do we go? Where do we pick? I mean, there's so many places you could go, right? So here are some factors that I would consider. Number one, go somewhere that's receptive. And here's my rule of thumb. If it's less receptive than the United States, why would I go there and do a missions trip? I might as well just stay home. okay? Because I can go soul winning here. So I like to go on mission trips to places that are at least a little more receptive than the U.S., okay? And if they're much more receptive than the U.S., then so much the better. But I think how receptive the place is should be a big factor on where you go. Number two, you got to factor in cost. So when I'm picking a place for a missions trip, I like to just look at flights and see how much is it going to cost for people, because if the flights are too expensive, you're not going to be able to get as many people to participate. Typically on these missions trips, people end up paying their own way. Laymen end up saving up the $500, $600, $700 for a flight. But you know, some geographies, it's going to take $1,500 for a flight or $2,000 for a flight. Well, you know what? That's going to be cost prohibitive. Most people aren't going to be able to afford that. So you want to factor in somewhere that's receptive, somewhere that the cost is reasonable, the lodging is going to be reasonable, the food's going to be reasonable. You got to look at the cost, and then also the closeness. You know, you're going to be more likely to get people signed up for a missions trip that's not super far away. Closeness is a plus. And then lastly, the coolness factor. Now, don't underestimate this component, the coolness factor. What is our goal with putting on a missions trip? We need people to go on the missions trip, right? Because if we're going to do a great work for the Lord, it's typically not going to be done with 3 or 4 people. We typically are going to want to have 30 or 40 people, or at least 15 or 20 people. The more the merrier, amen? So the coolness factor is what gets people to show up, all right? If it's a place that sounds cool, if you can hype it up, then people are more likely to come. So the cost, the receptivity, the closeness, and the coolness factor. For example, some of the places that we've gone. Aruba, okay? It's close. Now, it wasn't super duper receptive, but it was definitely receptive enough. It was more receptive than the United States for sure. It was close. The flights were cheap. You could get $500 flights there. And it had a big coolness factor because it's mentioned in a Beach Boys song. So, you know, right away, people just, when they hear that, they're thinking Aruba, Jamaica. You know, it just kind of is something that they've kind of heard of, and it sounds like a fun place to go. Even if someone just off the street knew nothing about Aruba, when they hear the word Aruba, they're just like, that's a cool place to go. It just sounds good, right? Jamaica. We did a big soul-winning missions trip to Jamaica, and Jamaica has a certain coolness factor to it of just people would think to themselves, man, I've always wanted to go to Jamaica, or that sounds fun, that sounds cool. We went to Guyana. Now look, Guyana is very receptive, more receptive than Aruba. Guyana is super receptive. Guyana doesn't quite have as much coolness factor, if you talk about going to Guyana, but you can kind of increase the coolness factor by saying South America. You know, it might sound a little cooler or something. Now, Guyana, the flights were more like $800. But guess what? On the Guyana missions trip, we had a lot less people go. We had more people go to Aruba because the flights were $500 and it had a higher coolness factor. Guyana, flights are $800, a little less coolness. Well, guess what? We had like half the number of people come or less. So these are the kind of things you want to factor in. We've done mission trips to Mexico that have been really successful, and a bunch of other places. But the first thing is you want to pick a place, okay? So pick somewhere close, cheap, and that sounds cool. All right, next you got to promote this, all right? You want to give people at least 3 or 4 months. You know, you want to plan these things at least like 4 months out, because a lot of people are going to need time to save up money, and that might take 4 to 6 months or something. They might need to get a passport. They might need to get a visa, depending on where you're going. So you need to give them time. Another important factor with mission trips, as far as actually the nuts and bolts of running the thing, you must break it down into small teams, okay? When it comes to organizing a mission trip, the best way to do this is to break it down into small teams. What do I mean by that? Well, when we went to Aruba, we had about 50-some people come on that mission trip. If you just have one leader trying to organize 50 people, you're just herding cats, and it's not going to work because, you know, one person's got to use the bathroom, and it's like, all right, everybody, let's all stop what we're doing so that so-and-so can use the bathroom, pick up so-and-so. It's better to break into independent teams that work independently. So when we went to Aruba, we broke into 4 separate teams. They had 4 separate leaders. They lodged in 4 different areas, and they all went soul winning right in their local area. So they ate together, they went soul winning together, they lodged nearby, and they were accountable to that particular leader. And by breaking into 4 groups of less than 15 people, then it's a lot easier. Like, for example, my team had about 12 people in it. So, you know, I had my 12 disciples, and I was able to organize that and keep that going smoothly. But trying to organize 50 people is just a fool's errand. You know, it's just too many people. So you want to break down. I recommend team sizes of less than 15. Get it down to less than 15 people. Even Jesus walked around with 12 guys, so that's a pretty good rule of thumb. Okay, now, when we were in Guyana, we broke it down even smaller than that. We would break it down where each team is just 4 guys and a cab driver, right? You have just a little sedan that holds 5 people. You got your driver, 4 guys, that's 2 soul-winning teams, and that was our team. We just had 4-man teams plus a hired paid cab driver, and that works great because you can get in, you can get out, you're not waiting around for people. It just goes a lot quicker, so have small teams. Next point I want to make is that you've got to have recreation. Make it fun. Now look, I always limit these soul-winning mission trips to 5 hours a day of soul-winning max. Don't make people go soul-winning for more than 5 hours a day. It's too much, okay? Now here's the thing. Let's say you have a missions trip and you do 8 hours a day of soul-winning. Well, you know what? A lot of people, of course, are just going to go along with it. They're going to do it. Maybe even no one will complain. Maybe everybody will seem fine with it, but you know what you'll notice? People not coming back next time. And some people have gone home from those type of mission trips where they were pushed too hard and they said, I'm never going on a mission trip again. And you know what? I'd rather that somebody goes on a mission trip, goes soul winning for 5 hours a day, has fun, and says, I want to go to the next one. I can't wait for the next one. I'm going to the next one. I don't want to just take one person on one mission trip, run them into the ground, and then it's like discard them and find another sucker to go on the next trip. What I want to do is I want to have a guy who's coming in the spring, and then he's back in the fall, and then next year he's back again. And look how many people have gone to just over and over again Faith Forward mission trips. They keep coming back. They can't wait for the next one. You know why? Because we don't run them into the ground and we make it fun. And by the way, if people are paying their own way, and people, if they want to quit soul winning after an hour or two, so what? They paid their own way. And even if the church subsidized them or helped them, hey, if they're willing to put in a couple hours a day of soul winning, great. Our standard, though, that we strive for, we try to get in 5 hours a day of soul winning. Okay, 5 hours a day, and I'm done personally. It's exhausting winning souls, especially if you're in a receptive country. You're giving the gospel nonstop. It's the people telling you no that gives you a break in the U.S., right, where you get a break from preaching. But man, when you're in one of these receptive places, sometimes you're just wall-to-wall preaching. Hey, after 5 hours, I am done. And you know what? So are most people done after 5 hours. You want it to be fun. You want them to like it. You want them to come back. And this is also part of how you promote it as a time of fellowship, adventure, fun. Sometimes, if you're going on a whole week-long trip, sometimes it's even good to have a full day of recreation. Now, the hyper-spirituals aren't going to like it. The holier-than-thous aren't going to like it. But you know what? I don't like holier-than-thou people, so they can just stay home for all I care. And you know what? When you're running the missions trip, you got to nip the holier-than-thous in the bud if they start speaking up like, well, don't you love souls? You know, what are we doing? Quitting for it's like, hey, you got to nip that in the bud. All right? You got to have balance in your life. So 5 hours a day should be the cap on soul winning. Now, look, if somebody wants to go out and do more than that, then go for it, buddy. As long as they're not pressuring other people and making other people feel bad or putting them down because they're not going to those extremes, okay? So, meals, okay? When you're doing this, schedule long meals, you know, because if you're going to go soul winning for 5 hours, you know, schedule a 2-hour lunch or an hour and a half for lunch. Let people have fun and talk and tell the stories and fellowship. And look, fellowship is an important part of the Christian life. It's part of Christian growth. It's part of being edified. And it's one of the major benefits that you get from these mission trips is that it's a team-building activity, okay? So you could have a schedule, for example, where you go soul winning for 2 hours from, say, you know, 11 to 1 or something, or from 10 to 12 or whatever, depending on where you're going soul winning, what the culture's like. You could go soul winning from 10 to 12 or whatever, and then just have an hour and a half, 2 hours for lunch, right? Then go out for another 3 hours in the afternoon, and then have dinner, and then just hang out and just enjoy and have some recreation planned. Don't go overboard on the soul winning, and don't make the meals too fast. Like, oh, well, you just got to get a sack lunch and hurry up and get you back out there working. Stop, enjoy, fellowship, relax, smell the roses. And you know what? You say, you just sound like you're too watered down, Pastor Anderson. But here's the thing. You know, we went to Aruba, and you know what? We enjoyed the recreation. We enjoyed the beaches and the dining and the bicycle rides and the hiking. And we went soul winning for 5 hours every day. And you know what? We had 340-some people saved in 5 days. In a place that's not that receptive. It's a little bit more receptive than the United States, but it wasn't a super receptive place. But yeah, we had 340-some salvations. That's a serious missions trip in my book, okay? So, you can put it down that we didn't do enough, but you know what? You don't want to do too much because you're going to run people off. You're going to wear them out. I guarantee you that everybody who was on that Aruba trip would do it again if they had the chance. They would love it. Now, obviously, your schedule is going to be different depending on where you go. When we were in Aruba, here's the thing about Aruba is that, the beaches, obviously, there's going to be a bunch of bikini babes out there in the afternoon and evening and stuff, so you don't want to do your recreation at that time. But what we found is that the beaches were completely empty until like 11 o'clock. So we kind of scheduled our recreation time in the mornings because then we could go to the beaches and enjoy it without it being just a nudity fest. We got there, there's nobody else there. We can hang out, we can go swimming, we can enjoy. And then we did most of our soul winning in the afternoon and evening. And, some places you might reverse that or whatever. But just make sure that you schedule ample time for meals. Make sure you see some of the sites while you're there, do some recreation, and do about 5 hours a day of soul winning is a good rule of thumb. Okay, another thing I want to bring up is that it's good sometimes to have an advance man. Okay, and what I mean by that is when we do these mission trips, we typically send somebody a few days in advance as kind of our John the Baptist to go prepare the way before us and make our paths straight, right? To prepare in the desert a highway for our God. So we like to send somebody beforehand just so that somebody's already there. They can check into hotels, they can rent the bicycles or rent the cars or line up the cab drivers. It's good to just have one guy who goes a little early if you can and just kind of get everything ready to roll. He can maybe set up appointments if you're trying to preach in schools, if you're trying to preach in churches. He can just get there and be boots on the ground, figure out which way is up, and just be maybe the guy to pick people up at the airport, so that when people are arriving, he's there to get them. Now, typically in our church, that guy is Brother Daniel Ryder. He's working for us full time, and he has been our advance man. A lot of you probably don't even know him. He's kind of a quiet guy, so you might not have been familiar with him, but he actually does a lot of work around here, and he has been our guy. Which mission trips have you participated in as the guy who went ahead?
Well, I've done Aruba, Guyana. I've done Jamaica. I've been to Malawi.
Yeah, Aruba, Jamaica, Guyana, Malawi. So he went ahead and did a lot of these. I'm going to have him come at this time, and he's going to give some of the thoughts that he has, because he actually does a lot of the organizing of the practical things for these mission trips. And so I'm going to have him come at this time and talk about some of the things that he does and some of the things that he's planned on these trips.
All right. As Pastor already said, my name is Daniel Ryder, and I'm just going to show you some things that I think that you need to keep in mind when organizing a missions trip. So the first thing I want to read a Bible verse that came to mind while thinking about this. It says in Proverbs 24:27, "Prepare thy work without, and make it fit for thyself in the field, and afterwards build thine house." So it's important when you plan something, you want to prepare early. And that's not just when you get there, you just start. You want to prepare, as Pastor said, months in advance. So that's very important that you are a prepared person in all these things, because otherwise you're going to have a lot of trouble. Things happen, people have problems. You want to be very prepared. So the first thing I want to talk about is as Pastor said, you should really give 3 to 4 months in advance. And the reason why is, one, it takes time for you to prepare. And also, if people who want to come to the mission trip, when you announce it, they're going to need time to get either a passport or a visa. That just takes several months, depending on where you go. So it's very important that you give people time and a little extra time, because no one likes to be rushed on these things. So it's a soul-winning trip, but it's also people's vacation. So you keep that in mind, and they don't want to be pushed too hard. So you want to give people time. That's the appropriate thing to do. So next thing you also want to keep in mind is, this is not in particular order, but something you want to do when preparing a mission trip is make a WhatsApp group. So when you promote the mission trip, you tell people to email your contacts and so forth, and then you end up making a WhatsApp group. The reason is so everyone can be connected, and people have questions that you may not have thought of, and then somebody can ask it, and then it can be answered for everybody. That's how you would do that sort of thing. So I recommend making a WhatsApp group if you want to make a mission trip for your church. And another thing is what to bring. That's something to think about when you're doing mission trips. So there's church supplies and there's personal stuff. So church supplies is simple, like Bibles, YouTube cards, DVDs, those sort of things, whatever your church has, or you can maybe email another church and they maybe can help you out. And then also there's personal things. You have to think about where you're going. Is it a hot air time? A lot of places we go to are usually hot, humid areas, so there's mosquitoes. So maybe a bug repellent, or definitely a net for your bed if they don't have that at the place you're staying. When I was in Jamaica, we ended up getting this zapper where you can zap the mosquitoes. It's very effective to electrocute some. It's pretty cool. So it was that was good. And then another thing to do is you make maps. So that's something to do. You want to do it in advance. Usually, you want to make maps. So you look at the areas and look at you can't get exactly, because you can't go test it beforehand like you might do in your local city. But you still can make maps of this is the area that's residential and it looks like it'd be a fairly receptive area. They're close together, whatever the things you want. But basically, look in the city and look what's close to you, what everyone around you, and try to make. And you have to make maps enough. And you want to make extra maps. So you just look at this. Obviously, use that by GPS. Another thing you want to do is, as Pastor said, you want to organize groups. You can do that before then or after you all arrived. And a group should be maximum of 15 people, and you need a leader for each group. And one good way to organize groups is by hotel. Let's say there's 6, 7 people in one hotel. Then you can have a leader of that hotel, of those in the group, so because they're already together, or maybe a hotel, the one right near it, so they can be a leader of that. So you need someone to lead if you're not directly, especially if you're not directly if it's the same physical location, if you're spread out. So it's good to have group leaders, and it's good to give. You need to have people to give responsibilities to, especially for a fairly big mission trip, where you can't drive everyone around. So maybe you have to ask people to drive and volunteer in that way. So that's good to find helpers, basically, so you can recruit helpers when doing a mission trip. And then another thing to think about is vehicles. So you want to rent a vehicle, or you can use a taxi. And there's pluses and minuses to both. Renting a vehicle, you can just go whenever you want, and if you have a schedule, it's better to do that. I usually have that opinion. You rent it, it's usually better. But if you want to do a taxi, that still could work. If you're in the city, you can do a taxi pretty easy, and they're not that expensive. So that's something to keep in mind. If you want to rent, you want to go maybe a few months early, just connect and contact them and call them. Another thing is Pastor says about preparing recreation. So there's all sorts of recreation one can do. I mean, there's things like hiking. You could go to a beach or a private beach, like that sort of thing, where there's not a bunch of people there. Or you could even just spending times having days where you have like extra long meals, right? Where you just want to hang and relax, you sleep in basically for that day, and then you go do your recreation afterwards. And then there's obviously the biggest thing for recreation is tourist areas that are like beautiful sights in that place. And we've gone biking and things like that, and we walked around some good hikes and some beautiful sights basically in the country of there, because it is a vacation. It's good to keep that in mind, that people it's soul winning, but it's also vacation. It's a mix of both for a lot of people. So you want to keep that in mind when preparing these trips. And another thing to always remember when doing a mission trip is have a working phone. So you have to get a phone that's unlocked. Most American phones are locked. So you can try to get it unlocked here. But what I do is I buy a cheap phone from another country. I have a phone from Africa. It is cheap and it works everywhere. So I just buy different SIM cards when I go there. When you get to the country, you can buy in the airport or on the streets. There you can just buy a SIM card and you buy a phone plan. right? So it costs maybe $30 or so, and you make a phone plan that prepares you for the week or 2 weeks, however long you're out there for. So it's very important to have a working phone for you and for as many people as possible in the groups out there. So you can't be alone without a working phone. If you don't have a phone, you need to be with somebody with a phone, because then they can get lost. You want to be responsible for everybody, so nothing happens. So you want somebody in each group to have a working phone. That's very important when you keep that in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is churches to go to. You want to look in advance for churches. You want to see all the Baptist churches in the area, independent Baptist churches, and look and find and see which ones you think will be the best. And that's just a judgment call you have to make, and then go there in person and see that. And there's lots of churches in many, there's a lot of options, if I'm going to say. And you can't just, it's not like, if it's not perfect, you don't want to go there. You still would want to go there because you can be respectful when you go there and just participate in that when going on a mission trip. And it's important that we not to forsake the assembling. So that's very important. And then another thing is going, you can do like special projects or special things, like one thing we've done in the past where you go to each of the jails, right? You just go there, or we go to the police stations. That's been pretty fun because they're usually pretty open. They want to talk and let you in. Or even we've gone to a military base or schools. So I don't see Brother Corbin but normally he's for example, I was talking with him. He's done a year and a half in the Philippines. And what he would do is he would go to the Department of Education and get a letter, so the entire region, he can go in, and he has a letter for them saying that they're allowed to go into the schools, and he would go from school to school in the Philippines, and they let him in fairly easy, preaching there. They usually if you're a foreigner, a lot of these countries, they let you in. Just if you, as Pastor said, if you just wear a suit, if you look presentable and you're a preacher from America, a lot of times they allow you to preach. So you go to schools, you can go to all these things, and you just say you want to preach, and a lot of times they'll just let you in, or they'll make an appointment for you to preach later. So that's something to keep in mind, depending on how long your mission trip is, that you could do these things, which are fun for some people, that for everyone really, but it's fun if it's appropriate for your mission trip, that you can really do a lot of cool things where you can preach in many schools, or you can go to the police station. I recommend the police stations because there's never any problem with that. So they're always open to talk. They seem to be. A lot of times they sit around. They're in other countries too, and they're just sitting there. So you could do those are good. And because the jails, the military, that takes a lot of follow up. It takes a lot of time. You have to email them, call them. That does do that. But these police stations, very easy, and it's pretty fun. So that's what I recommend. And you could do things where Pastor has also, where he's gone to Guyana and he goes to the radio station or the TV station. If that's something you want to do, also that's something to keep in mind. Maybe for your church or for whatever. If you want to put stuff on the radio, you can go talk to people in person, put it on the TV. You can go to them. So that's another really cool project that has been done. That's what in Guyana, Pastor has put a lot of preaching on their radio station that gets the gospel out and preaching out to thousands of people. So that's that. I think. It's just very important that you're prepared and that you go there early, so you can pick people up from the airport, and you go there early so you can just be on top of it and don't do things last minute. It's very important that you are prepared in that way. So that's what I would recommend. That's the things to keep in mind when doing a mission trip. Things that are important. So anything else if you think of, that's what another thing is. Like I said, the WhatsApp group. Like I was saying earlier, a good reason to have it is they're going to have questions. You may not think of every question beforehand, but they're going to ask you questions because people have doubts or questions, and you answer that question, and then it'll get resolved by having that sort of system set up. All right? Sounds good.
All right, very good. Thank you, Daniel. So, the WhatsApp group is great. Who's not familiar with WhatsApp? You don't know what WhatsApp is. All right. 2 people. Everybody else knows what it is, all right? But you know what's funny is I'd never heard of a WhatsApp either until I started going to other countries, because here's what I learned. In other countries, everyone's on WhatsApp. Everybody in Africa, everybody in the Philippines, it's just like they all use WhatsApp. Most Americans don't know what WhatsApp is. I think the people that are here are kind of missions-minded and a diverse crowd, young people that know. But the thing about WhatsApp is you make these groups, and so let's say we're going to Guyana in 2 months. We'll make a group, Guyana trip. And we'll add people's phone numbers. So whoever's going on the trip, we have them contact us with their contact info. We add their phone number to the group, and it's like a little chat just for the people that are, and they're like, hey, do I need to get this vaccine? Or hey, and it's like, no, you don't. And then it's like, what should I bring, or where, and like Daniel said, they're going to ask you questions that you've never thought of. But, oh, that's a great question, and you get it resolved. But then during the trip as well, that's just a great way to communicate, because it'll be like, hey, 5 of us are going to this restaurant, or hey, we just left, or hey, we're preaching at this school at 2 o'clock. Does anybody want to come help win souls? You can just help stay in touch like that. Now, I personally, like he's talking about with the burner phone and the SIM card, that's probably your cheapest option. What I end up doing, though, because I take so many trips to so many places, I just called my phone company and just upgraded my plan to where it just works everywhere, and it's only like 20 cents a minute or something, and then I just can keep my same number. But what he's saying is truly the most economical route. And you can buy the cheap burner phones here, the unlocked $75 phones, and then when you go there, you just buy a SIM card, pop it in, you got a local number, and you're good to go. So anyway, and then you just make sure to get in the WhatsApp group from that phone and so forth. So cab drivers versus renting a car, okay? He touched on that. The good thing, if you can get a cab driver, what you want to do is try to just rent one for the whole day if you go that route. And that's especially if you're going around to the schools, the police stations, the prisons, those kind of gigs where you're preaching here, preaching here, preaching here. The good thing about a cab driver is he knows his way around. So sometimes you can just hire these guys for $50 for the whole day or something, or $100 for the whole day. And then you got him, he watches your stuff, he runs and grabs food for you, he does errands for you, basically if you need like a local guide, then you get the cab driver. But if you have got everything figured out on your own, then that's where the rental car is better. And then sometimes in Aruba, we kind of experimented. We did a missions trip where we rented very few vehicles, and we just made people do a lot of things on foot or on bicycles, because we just planned everything really close, and we just did on foot and bicycles. But realistically, in 2020, very few people like to walk more than like a half mile, because people are just really out of shape. So you got to watch out with that. What we did in Aruba, I think what we did, didn't we say like group 4 was if you're physically fit and you want to walk a lot? And that was my group. Were you in my group too, right?
I was, but I went back and forth.
Yeah, you were back and forth. But so my group was like the group that walks a lot, all right? But then other groups were like the geriatric groups. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, and then another thing I want to say is, he talked about, preaching in schools and visiting churches. And listen, when you're in a third world country, a lot of times churches will just put you behind the pulpit, which is great, obviously. So be prepared to preach. So when you go to these places, have a sermon ready, because wouldn't you hate it if they're like, all right, come preach, and you're like, oh, I'm not prepared, and then you miss that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, right? So be prepared to preach, but don't go in asking to preach, because that's presumptuous. Just, hey, can I preach, or whatever. Just show up, be friendly, be a blessing. They'll typically approach you. They'll put you behind the pulpit, which is great. But always be respectful of them. Don't criticize the church. Don't go in there and pick it apart. Don't go in there with a bad attitude. Shame on you if that's your attitude. You should just be thankful to find brothers and sisters in Christ and love them in spite of their faults and so forth. So be respectful in church. Don't expect it to be perfect. And then there are 2 styles of missions trip, okay? Style number 1 is the style that mainly just focuses on door-to-door soul winning and just personal evangelism, walking up to people and giving them the gospel, okay? Style number 2 is where you're going more for like preaching in schools, preaching in churches, preaching in military bases, prisons, police, those type of mass gatherings. And they both have their pros and cons, Obviously, you're just preaching to thousands and thousands of people if you do the school route. But it's more quantity, but it's less quality. Because I'm a strong believer that the best quality is one-on-one with soul winning. You know what I mean? Or talking to 1 or 2 people. So I actually prefer the soul winning focus. But I like the other style too, because it's more dramatic. It gets people inspired. It's dramatic. To get up and preach to 600 students at a school is very dramatic. So it gets people excited, it motivates people, and you're getting the gospel to a lot of people. You can hand out a lot of material. There's pros and cons to both, but I will say this, we don't count those as salvations. So if I preach to 600 school students and 300 of them raise their hand to receive Christ as Savior, you know how many we count? 0. We just count that as a 0. We only count souls won from personal evangelism. You know, if we actually can talk to that person, look in their face, get feedback from them, not just a raise of a hand or a mass prayer. I mean, I'm not against the raise of a hand and doing a mass prayer, but we just don't count that because we can't really do a quality check there or quality control on that. So the last thing that I want to talk about is some specific ideas I have, and then I'll open up some questions. But some specific ideas that I have, because you say, man, let's do it. Let's do a mission trip. Here are some specific ideas. I talked about one of them in my sermon this morning. Specific idea, the northeastern part of India. I think that that would be amazing to go do that. Now, let's think about the factors, though. Cost is going to be high, but coolness factor is going to be through the roof. You know, preaching in India and seeing great results is a great coolness factor. I think receptivity is going to be through the roof, but it's very far and it's going to be expensive. So you're not going to get a big crew to go on that trip. Okay. But let me tell you about some mission trips that you could do that they fit all the criteria of they're receptive, low cost, they're close, and have a great coolness factor. Okay, Caribbean islands. All right, now I've done a bunch of research on the Caribbean. These are the islands, I'm telling you, and pastors, listen to me. These islands are going to be a home run mission trip, in my opinion. Number 1, St. Lucia, okay, because I've researched the demographics, the religion, poverty, just all the factors. And these are beautiful places, but they're poor countries, okay, but they're beautiful. So it's going to be fun. You're going to get a lot of people saved. St. Lucia, Grenada, St. Vincent, and Antigua. Okay, those 4 are going to be just home run mission trip. And maybe you're not a pastor, maybe you're just a layman, but you know what? If you can get a crew together, if you can organize this with your buddies, and maybe just get, you know, let's say you go to an old IFB church, and maybe he's not going to spearhead the thing, but I'm sure he'd probably give you moral support if you want to do something like this. Those 4, I'm telling you, St. Lucia, Grenada, St. Vincent, and Antigua. You know, if you don't do them, I will, all right? Because those are going to be awesome. Another idea that I had is, okay, Guyana. Guyana has a lot of American Indian reservations. They call them Amerindians down there, okay? And Guyana has these different villages and American Indian reservations. And here's the thing about Guyana, live music is something that they don't really have down there. It's extremely rare that they have any access to live music. There just aren't a lot of musicians in the country. There aren't a lot of people playing music. And so live music is really something novel to them. So I had this idea that I've been thinking about. If somebody could put together like just a small little brass band, you know, put together a little trio or quartet of like a trumpet, a saxophone. Because here's the thing about those instruments. They don't require any power. They're loud. You don't need an amplifier. You don't need a microphone. It's something you just bring with you. If you could put together a crew of a couple trumpets and a trombone or a saxophone, and if you go into some of these Amerindian villages where you have like, say, 800 people living there, or 200 people living there, or 150 people, or 300, I guarantee you that if you went there and just announced, I would get there in the morning and say, hey, tonight at 6 o'clock, we're going to be playing we're going to have a brass band and a preaching service and music and preaching. You know, you could probably go around all day and just invite everybody and win souls throughout the day, hand out flyers, win souls. You probably get the whole village to show up for something like that, and it'll really get their attention. It'll really blow them away. And I mean, if you could tour down there with just a little tiny brass trio or quartet, I think that'd be amazing. Or if you could put together just an a cappella, like a barbershop quartet type thing, 4 guys, and get together and sing hymns and actually have high quality, you know, I think that would really go over well down there. That was just an idea that I've been thinking about and working on, because the live music is just so rare down there. They've not really heard these instruments in person in most cases. And guess what? In these Indian reservation villages, there's like nothing going on. So even if you don't have the music, even if you just showed up and said, hey, we're having preaching, just everybody just shows up. You could win people to Christ. You could baptize them. I mean, it could be epic. So that's another idea that I had. And then, of course, another idea I want to throw out there is the Philippines. Look, Pastor Jimenez has founded 2 churches in the Philippines. I'm sure he's going to be preaching about it tonight. Verity Baptist Manila, and then they've also founded a second church in the Philippines. You know, you could lead a mission trip to the Philippines, and then you could interact with those churches that are already there and have a support system. Of course, the negative on that is just the distance and the cost is a little bit higher, but it would be great. So I want to open up for questions now at this time. Where's the mic? Do you have it? Let's go ahead and, Daniel, if you could just pass that mic to whoever has a question. Put up your hand if you have a question right over here, and we'll get to whoever has a question.
Actually, I have a couple questions.
Okay.
How do you get on the radio? Like you were talking about getting on the radio.
Great question. How do you get on the radio? Well, here's the thing. If you're one of the pastors, especially the pastors, I think it's worth it to just walk into the radio station and just say, "Hey, I'm a pastor from the United States," you know, and just ask them if they'll just put you on the radio for free, just as a guest, or if they have a talk show or anything. That's what we did when we were in Botswana. Look how great it worked out. I mean, you know, we got thrown out of the country, arrested, you know. No, but anyway, that's what I did. I went to the radio station and I just said, "Hey, I'm Pastor Anderson. I'm from the United States, and there's been some controversy and news stories about me back in the U.S. So if you have a talk show, I'd love to just go on and just talk to somebody." And here's the thing, some of you pastors have been in the media. You could just say that. Pastor Grayson Fritz could probably walk into one of these radio stations and just explain to them your story and how you've been in the media and how you'd like to talk on the radio, and you have a message for Guyana or you have a message for whoever. Now, that's not always going to work. A lot of times they're just going to be like, "Well, no, but give us money and we'll put you on the radio." And so a lot of times you got to pay to play. So what I do is I just walk into the radio station, see if they'll just have you on their typical talk show that they're already doing for free. Or if they say that they're not interested, then you basically just ask them, "Well, how much does it cost, to buy some airtime? Because I want to speak on the radio," and so forth. Okay. Same thing with the TV station. Last time I was in Guyana, about 6 months ago, I walked into the TV station and I said, "Hey, I've got these documentary films that I want to play. How much is it?" And I ended up paying like $1,000, and I ended up being able to play 5 of our films twice each. So we got like 20 hours of airtime on a very popular TV station called Safe TV. It's a Christian TV station, but it's really popular. We saw a lot of people watching it. So you just ask. You just physically go down there and just walk in and just see if you can buy some airtime. Sometimes it's really cheap in these countries. So, any other questions?
I also wanted to ask about sermon recommendations for like police stations or schools.
Oh, like what should you preach? Okay, so when I preach in these places, I try to preach something that they're going to like. Okay, so like, for example, when I would go into the schools to preach, now obviously I'm going to tie in the gospel, but I like to preach something else also, typically, because sometimes they'll give you a half hour. It doesn't really necessarily take a half hour to present the gospel. So like what I did is I walked into the administration and I asked them, "What would you like me to preach on? Is there anything I can help you with? Is there any issues that you're having with the students? Because I'd love to help with whatever the issue is." And sometimes they said, "Oh yeah, we've had an issue with stealing or something." Then, then preach on stealing. That's what they want to hear. Or, "Well, we just really want them to be good students and study." And then, I'll preach on study to show yourself approved. It's like, I typically like to preach what they like. Okay, but then tie it in with the gospel. Now, when I say preach what they like, I'm not saying, "Hey, compromise your message and, tell people what they want to hear." But I'm saying, why not? If they're having a problem with pornography, then preach about it. If they're having a problem with stealing or vandalism, preach against vandalism. Because then what happens is, when we left these schools, I asked them, "What would you like me to preach?" "Oh man, can you cover vandalism or whatever?" And then I'll preach that, and then then they're just really happy. Like, "Oh man, thank you so much. That's been bugging me, and straighten these kids out." And and they're going like this the whole time you're preaching and stuff. You might as well get them on your side. Because think about it, if you're a teacher at school, you'd love for somebody to come in and rip their faces about fornication, stealing, respecting your elders. These are all things that you can find in the Bible and preach. And then just find a way to segue into the gospel at the end. So the police, I guess I wasn't the one preaching in the police stations, but I would assume you'd kind of do the same thing. You know, you'd preach something about something that policemen would like. I don't know. What do police like? Donuts or what? Whatever. All right, another question over here.
So entering certain countries, don't they force you to take certain vaccines to
I've
enter?
never seen a country where you had to take
African
vaccines.
countries.
Usually that's kind of a misconception, because what will happen a lot of times is that these vaccines will be like really strongly recommended. Usually if you're an American though, you don't have to do the vaccines. Typically it'll be like if you're coming from all these countries, you have to get it. You know, and it's not the US. So I personally have never been confronted with that. And we've got a lot of shady places, and we never needed vaccines. So, but if there were, you know, I'm not taking any vaccines. So if there's a place where it requires vaccines, I might just skip that one. You know. Any other questions? Yep, over here.
Do you have any connections in the countries like Lesotho and Swaziland, which is in South Africa? Do you have any guys over there, or should you say I should just hook up with Brother Sean Hickelman for mission trips like that? Or do you know local guys there that has reached out to you?
I haven't heard from anybody in Swaziland or Lesotho. Maybe you can help me find a flight into Lesotho, because like I was trying to look for a flight into Lesotho. Lesotho is a country that's surrounded by South Africa on all sides. So it's like this little island. So I thought it would be so cool just to make South Africa mad. I was trying to see if I could fly directly into Lesotho and then be like, I'm in South Africa preaching, you know, and I was going to try to get all the South Africans to rally there and stuff like that. But I haven't heard from any listeners in Lesotho or Swaziland. But if you find a flight that bypasses South Africa, let me know. Or let's hire a private plane or whatever. You know, I'm like Kenneth Copeland. I need a jet, you know, so I can just, I need my own jet. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, yeah, Swaziland, Lesotho, I think would be great places. I think they're going to be receptive because, you know, the Lesotho people are ethnically basically the same people as the Setswana people in Botswana. So it's the same. The language is also almost the same. So, yeah, I would just get with Sean Heukelman and Pastor Bogart and whoever they know. So, any other questions? Yes, Brother Milstead.
Do you recommend taking family members with you on a missions trip?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I usually take at least one of my kids on a missions trip when I go. I mean, you know, you saw I don't know if you noticed in the Deported film, but you know, Ryan Gallagher in the Deported film, he had like a toddler and his wife, and they're like in the midst of all that. That was pretty intense, you know. But you know what? He keeps going on missions trips, so apparently it didn't spoil it for him. But yeah, I'm for bringing your family, and we've had a lot of families come on these trips to Mexico, Aruba, Guyana. I think it's a great family experience for sure. All right, well, anyway, we're out of time. We're going to have a 10-minute break, and then at 2 o'clock, we're going to talk about the internet technology and some of the things we can do on the internet for evangelism. So we're dismissed for 10 minutes. Yeah, we've done that. We've done a little bit of that. Daniel was the one who's been spearheading a little bit of that. But sometimes it's hard to get through. It's hard to get a call back. Just walking in is just so much more powerful. You know what I mean? But yeah, you're right. You could just do it from here over the phone. But there's something about physically being there. You know, just waltzing in, you can talk turkey, you can get a good deal, and you're looking in the eye. They take you more seriously. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. Theoretically, it can be done from home, but then you got to deal with transferring money and stuff. I was just like cash down and just making the deal, signing the papers. It's just so much easier. Because how can you trust them? Yeah. So here's the thing. Like I was on the radio every day in Guyana for 9 months. So here's what I need something. I actually radio segment every day and email it to me. So I got it emailed to me every day, so there was no faith required. I basically double check, and every once in a while I wouldn't play, and then I'd contact Ray and say, hey, my segment didn't play today. Oh yeah, sorry, you know. But basically that way I can keep them honest. So yeah, that's what I do is hire somebody off Fiverr.com. Fiverr.com is a great resource for just hiring people. It's FIVERR.com. It's just you just hire people, you pay them $5. So it's just cheap labor. So I just went on Fiverr and just searched Guyana, and I found this woman there that said like, oh, I'll be your personal assistant, or I'll answer questions about Guyana, or whatever. And I just hired her, and I just said, hey, you know, what I want to do is I want you to record this radio program for me every day. And then she's like, sure, it'll be this much money. And I'm like, and usually they'll do it for cheap because it's like working from home in another country. I mean, they're just having to cheap the whole Well, I got a half hour a day. Half hour a day. So I would just do 1 hour sermons and just play out the day out of the lunch ran over and I looked at my watch. Yeah, I didn't know you were going to No, don't worry about it. The light wasn't really See, I told the guys that were running I was just expecting that we'd be directed like he just no, we made it. So I guess I did whatever I can see it. I was live in Tucson. Next thing here.
When they were in Guatemala,
I thought you went to like a even a Chipotle was Mexican. Yeah. Yeah, I've been. I saw it driving. When I was out there, you know their area where they have this cheese thing, melted cheese. Not this area, but there's an area there that's kind of by the ketchup. It's kind of these two things full of melted cheese. But anyway, I got before when I went there, I usually got fried chicken, and I would dump the melted cheese in it. It was the spice. I want to go to India. Yeah, I want to go. I want to do one that's further out. Instead of going like to Belize and the Caribbean areas, there's nothing there. I want to go on one that's like further out, like he said he wanted to go there. Wait, India used to be an English colony. Yeah. It used to be owned by England and now it's Korea. I remember when I heard anybody told me something about I always was like, I would want to reincarnate as like a mother. Never think like one of the things born in a castle. Oh yeah. Oh, there's a seminar on like how to organize.
All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started on the next session. So if you want to just come in close, tighten up here, come all the way to the front if you're going to listen in for this next session. Come closer, closer. So fill in all the way up to the front if you can. A lot of people are out doing other stuff, so we want to fill it in here in the front. Don't be shy. All right, so this session is on internet technology and evangelism. We're living in an unprecedented time with the technology of the internet. And what I've often said is that the internet is the printing press of the 21st century. Just as the printing press revolutionized mankind, and revolutionized Europe when it was introduced and was able to print the Bible for the first time and make it cheap and easy to just mass produce Bibles. And so many things changed with the printing press. Well, the internet is kind of the same way. I mean, it's just such an amazing leap forward when it comes to technology. And of course, the internet could be used for good or evil. There's a lot of junk on the internet, but the internet can also be used to win many people to Christ. The job of evangelizing the world is bigger than it's ever been. With 7.6 billion people on this planet, it seems like an overwhelming task. Because if you think about it, at the time of Christ, they probably had something like around 200, 250 million people on this earth, or however many. But the point is that the job is bigger now, but we also have bigger tools. So we want to take advantage of these tools, and I want to give you just some practical tips of how the internet could be used to evangelize. Now, this is never going to replace soul winning. This is never going to replace physically walking up to people, knocking their doors, and that is because everyone's not online. You know, a lot of people aren't online. And so the only way to get the gospel to everybody is you got to physically walk up to people and talk to them. But not only that, even a lot of people that are online, they're not going on YouTube and searching for Baptist preaching or the Bible Way to Heaven. They're going on YouTube and searching for movies, and they're searching for music and rock concerts and everything else, and they're not even necessarily ever going to find any biblical teaching or preaching. So you can't take the internet as a substitute for soul winning, but at the same time, you don't want to make the opposite mistake and just write off the internet and say, well, we're just about soul winning, we're old-fashioned, and, you know. Folks, the internet is a part of our lives in the 21st century, and we need to take advantage of it because there are a lot of people that are not going to be reached through soul winning that will be reached through the internet. People that if you knocked on their door, they don't want to talk, but they will watch what's on the YouTube card that you give them or whatever, you know, on their own. Maybe they're more introverted or private or whatever. So I'm a strong believer in doing both, right? Physically talking to people in the real world and also doing everything we can to reach people on the internet. So let me go through a few basic things. First of all, YouTube, obviously. Now, obviously, YouTube is where Faith Forward Baptist Church has had a great amount of success, okay? We have 128,000 subscribers. Our channel right now shows like 72 million viewers, and that's even with a lot of videos being deleted that had millions of views. So altogether, we've probably had more like 80 or 90 million views just on our main channel over the years. Right now, we're getting 750,000 to 1 million viewers per month on our YouTube channel, okay? I added up the minutes watched on our YouTube channel just from 2012. We've been on since 2007. Just from 2012 to 2020, we've had over 1,000 years of preaching watched. So minutes watched, eventually minutes become hours, become days, become weeks, become years. And I've been preaching for over 1,000 years. So let me just put that in perspective for you, what that means when it says minutes watched, 1,076 years. Think about this. What if I just literally just went around and talked to people for 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I never took a day off, I never got sick, I never took a vacation, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, I just went around and talked to people for 8 hours a day. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? 8 hours a day, I'm just talking to people. Sometimes I'm talking to one person, maybe I'm talking to a group of 2 or 3, but you know, nothing mass, just walking around talking to people, just constantly, just talking to them about the Word of God, talking to them about the Bible, talking to them about church, talking to them about the gospel, winning souls, whatever. But just 8 hours a day, every day, right? And let's say I did that for 60 years, right? I mean that's consistency, right? 60 years, 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. Nobody would really be able to do that, right? But let's say I did that, right? Okay, that's what our church's YouTube channel does in 1 month. In 28 days, we'll sometimes have 20 years watched, just in a 1 month period sometimes. And if you stop and think about that, that'd be like 60 years of 8 hours a day. Isn't that amazing? Or if you think about just from 2012 until now, the 1,000 years, that's like doing that for 3,000 years. Can you imagine just going out and talking to people about the Lord every day for 3,000 years? So what I'm trying to say is the potential with the internet is just kind of mind-blowing when you put it in those kind of terms, right? When you stop and think about it like that, it really blows your mind that, you know, to have 1 million views per month or whatever. Now look, I'm not saying that every YouTube channel is going to reach that many people, but what if you just did 1/100th of that? That's still amazing, isn't it? I mean, even just to do 1/1000th of that is amazing. So what I'm saying is the potential is huge. YouTube can be used to reach a lot of people. So let me give you some tips because I want you guys to be able to improve your YouTube channels. A lot of you guys are laymen, right? But you go to a church maybe you can help your pastor get his stuff out online and be more successful. You're independent Baptist, but pastor, he's pre-trib or whatever. So what? If he's we want to help anybody who's preaching the gospel. I've had old IFB guys call me up and just ask me for tips about YouTube. And you know what I did? I gave them tips about YouTube. It's not like, well, I got to protect this information, so that my channel can dominate or whatever. I told them, hey, here are the tips, right? So some of you guys in here that are pastors, you can use some of these tips. Or if you go to a church, you can help get your church's preaching online. Man, I would love to see all 6,000 independent Baptists in America that are King James only. I'd love to see all of them just flooding YouTube with content and just be saturated with Bible preaching, okay? It's a lot better than most of the junk that's on YouTube, amen? So here are some tips. Tip number 1 for YouTube, upload everything. Upload everything. What I've found with a lot of pastors is they're a little self-conscious about their preaching. So what they'll do is they'll be like, I'm just going to upload my best sermons. But here's the thing. The sermons that you think are the best sermons might not be the best sermons. Sometimes I'll preach a sermon that I think was awesome, and everybody's just kind of like, eh. Other times I preach a sermon where I'm kind of like, eh, and then people are like, that was awesome. You don't really know, okay, what is good. Sometimes we're not our best judge of ourselves. And I've uploaded videos where I uploaded it and thought, this video is just kind of a nothing burger, and then it'll just go viral. And then other times I'll upload something like, yeah, this is going to go viral, this rules, and it's just like, goes nowhere. You don't know. So upload everything, just put it all out there. Every sermon, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, just upload everything because you never know what God's going to use. You never know what's going to go crazy. Upload everything. Number 2, you've got to put the keywords in the title. The title is important. I'm looking at just church after church after church after church in the old IFB, and you want to know what their sermons are called? Wednesday, February 7th, 2019. Well, that's a great title. I'm not joking. I mean, I just saw my old pastor preached at a church, and somebody sent me and said, hey, is this your old pastor? I was like, oh, cool, he's preaching. What's the title? March 27th, 2019 AM service. That's not a title, all right? You've got to have a title that makes people want to click on it. Now, I don't do clickbait. Amen? No clickbait. People should actually get what the video says they're going to get. You can rickroll every once in a while, but I'm just saying in general, you don't want to have just these clickbait. You'll never believe what this pastor said, or, unforgettable ending, or shocking sermon that shocked everyone. I don't like that kind of clickbait. Put in the title what it's actually about, and pack it with keywords, right? So that if people are searching those keywords, look, yeah, there's the description, there's the tags, there's the hashtags, but the title is the main thing. When it comes to YouTube's search function, the main thing it goes by is the title. So put things, that's why you'll notice a lot of my old YouTube videos would be like, they'll give the title of the sermon and it'll be in parentheses like Independent Baptist Preaching, Fundamental Baptist Preaching, King James Bible. I'll just kind of tag those into the title so that I can kind of get those key phrases. If people are typing that in, it'll come up. So the title is the most important thing. Obviously, you want to put in the description, the tags, the 3 hashtags, but I'm telling you, the title is the most important thing. Another thing is you've got to have the short clips from your sermon. A lot of people aren't going to click on a 1-hour video. So what you want to do is, if there's any kind of a high point in your sermon, the best point in the sermon, or just kind of a little self-contained little 3-minute spiel you went on that was about a certain subject, pull that out and make that its own clip, and then point people to where they can watch the whole sermon. But you'll kind of get people with more of those little hooks in the water, okay, of the short videos. So in short, what you need is a great quantity of content. You upload everything, you're uploading 3 sermons a week, and you're uploading a bunch of short clips. Part of the reason why my channel has a lot of subscribers is just quantity. We have like 6,500 videos on there right now. So, I mean, obviously, if you only have 200 videos, you're not going to have the same effect as if you upload 6,000 videos. And it takes time. But, you just keep uploading. But also, your content has to be good content. It doesn't matter how much you upload or how good the keywords are. At the end of the day, you have to preach a sermon that people want to hear. You have to upload content. So if you're doing this for your pastor, you know, when you're sitting in church, if the pastor just hits a home run point, if there's a high point, you're sitting in the sermon, it's just like, bam, he nailed that. That's your short clip for YouTube, because then that's going to be the one where people watch it and say, oh man, this is good, and it'll get them interested and so forth. So you need a quantity of quality content. It's all about content, putting up a lot of content. So I don't want to talk too much about YouTube. A lot of you already know that, and you're working on YouTube and so forth. But I want to talk about some specific things with Facebook, okay? So how can we use Facebook to get the gospel out to people? Well, here's the thing about Facebook. Facebook has ads that you can buy where you can boost a post, and you can actually target it to certain geographies, okay? And so this is where this ties in with missions, where this ties in with getting the gospel out to people. So let me tell you about a project that I did several years ago. I found a whole bunch of islands in the Pacific that had these obscure languages, things like Tuvaluan, Tahitian, Rapa Nui, Cook Island, Maori, you know, just these really obscure languages. A lot of them I'd never even heard of, okay? But here's the thing about these languages. Even though they're only spoken by, say, 10,000 people, 40,000 people, 90,000 people, they're all concentrated on like one island, right? It's like this one island, Tuvalua, and they speak Tuvaluan, right? Well, here's the thing about that. What I did was I hired some professional translation companies to basically translate the Bible Way to Heaven video into 10 of these island languages in the South Pacific region, okay? And then what I did was I used those for subtitles for the Bible Way to Heaven. So it's me giving the gospel in English, but it just has subtitles in those languages. Well, here's the thing about that. Those people in those countries, they're probably not used to anybody even like noticing their language or even giving their language the time of day. They're not used to somebody uploading a video in Tuvaluan. It just isn't out there. So basically what I did was I then ran a Facebook ad. I basically just posted this to the Faith Forward Baptist Facebook page, and then I hit boost post, and then I chose the geography that I want to boost it in, just that one island. So I'm not paying to post it in a bunch of places that aren't relevant. I'm only posting it on that island. Let's say there's 30,000 people on a particular island. So some of them were literally like 20 bucks, 30 bucks or whatever. And then some of the bigger islands, maybe it was like 200 bucks or whatever. But anyway, by doing that, I was able to put enough money on it, whether it was 20 bucks or 200 bucks for each one or whatever, different depending on the size, where it literally showed up in the Facebook feed of every single person who had a Facebook who was on that island. And you should have seen the response. I mean, it was getting tons of like and love and just people commenting, wow, this is so cool, and oh man, the subtitles are great, the translation's great, it's cool to see this in my language. And a lot of them are bilingual, they already speak English anyway, but if I just upload an English video, it might not get their attention, but they say Tuvaluan subtitles? It's like, huh? Then they feel like, oh, well, this church cares about me, or this church cares about my people, or they're interested in my island, or whatever. So I'm telling you, we got tens of thousands of people to watch the Bible Way to Heaven, probably hundreds of thousands of people to watch the Bible Way to Heaven in these islands. Now think about it in the past, if you would have had to get a boat and go to these islands and get the flu and get diseases and give them diseases and basically like, you know, you wouldn't even, you'd get there, you don't even know which way is up. Man, with the internet, I'm literally just sitting around on Facebook and just like getting the gospel to thousands of people with these Facebook ads. It's really just mind-blowing. Now you say, well, I don't know if that's a good use of the church's funds because, you know, that's not going to help our church grow. Who cares? You know, if I can spend a few grand and get the gospel to 100,000 people on some island out in the middle of nowhere, that's awesome. You know, that's what it's about, right? Get some people saved. And by the way, if you do stuff like that, you could build up a following in some of these places, and then that's a future missions trip, and you already got some people on the ground that you're in touch with in Samoa or wherever, you know, whatever the place. So that was a cool thing. And then, so I did that several years ago. The most expensive part of that was the translations because these were obscure languages. I think I ended up paying kind of a ridiculous amount for the translations. The translations might have been like 300 bucks each or something, you know. But most languages, to translate into most languages is much cheaper than that. You know, usually you pay like 7-8 cents a word at the most. But I paid a lot because these were like specialty languages. So then I just ran all the ads again. 2 years, I let a couple years go by, I ran all the ads again. And then it was way cheaper because I didn't have to translate anything. Now, I'm not saying you're going to do that exact thing, but I'm bringing that up just to illustrate the potential of the targeted Facebook ads. You know, you can do this, by the way, for your own church. You can actually target the area of your church. You can literally go on Facebook and pick your best sermon from 2019, pastors. Pick your best sermon and then run a Facebook ad for that sermon and just say, I want it to go in a 10-mile radius of my church. And that's all you're paying for, is just to run it right there so that your local community hears the gospel. Or, like I said, if you have some foreign language content, maybe you have somebody in your church who's Polish or Bulgarian or Croatian or Korean, Chinese, Japanese, and they put together, maybe you could just get with them and film a video where they present the gospel in whatever the language. You know, you get a guy in your church to give the gospel in Vietnamese, Bible Way to Heaven in Vietnamese, you know, from a native speaker in your church, right? And then it's like target that ad toward Vietnam, right? You could do that in all these different places. And I'm telling you, not only that, but when you target these ads, you can not only target them geographically, you can target them toward people being interested in a certain thing. So you could even target it toward people that are already interested in the things of God or their interests, Bible. It used to be, and then there used to be a feature where you could exclude certain groups, and I'm like, LGBT, you know. You can still exclude groups, but now it won't let you exclude the homos anymore because they might notice that I kept excluding homos every time I do anything. So anyway, you know, I've targeted videos. If I did a sermon that was like a conspiracy sermon or something, then I'll target people who were into like 9/11 Truth or Alex Jones or, you know what I mean? Like you can target stuff like that. And I'll do this in other countries. I'll target Australia. I'll target New Zealand. I'll target the UK, Canada, whatever. So you can actually use these targeted Facebook ads to reach people in foreign countries, reach people with foreign languages. You can really kind of home in on certain groups of people that you want to make it your project. Like, I want to reach this little country here and just hit them with the gospel, right? So that's a cool thing about Facebook. So that kind of brings me to my next point, which is foreign language content, okay? If we want to use the internet to reach people all over the world with the gospel, English is great because people speak English all over, but it's great if you can get some foreign language content, right? Where you can actually put stuff out in Spanish, French, German, Korean, Chinese, Japanese, Vietnamese, whatever. So if you have people in your church that speak these languages, and most Baptist churches have people that speak foreign languages, you know, team up with that person. They can help you translate things, or they can just help you produce original content where you point a camera at them and they give the gospel in their language, and you can use that as a Facebook ad, and the rest is history. So another thing I want to highlight is that we've had some fans of our ministry over the years produce materials in other languages, you know, documentaries of ours where they helped us dub them or did subtitles for them or just re-preached sermons in their own words and so forth. And that has helped get it out. Like, for example, we had a brother and sister that visited us a few years ago from Slovakia, and they had an entire website of just faithful word stuff in Slovakian, Bible Way to Heaven, documentaries, sermons, and then they did some of their own original content too, where they made videos where they're just talking into the camera and giving the gospel and so forth. And I mean, I was just blown away by that, and I was thinking how cool that would be to have that in, you know, every European language, every Asian language, you know, just because people find this stuff. Now, we have Brother Pierre Paul here. I'm going to actually have him come up and talk a little bit. Brother Pierre Paul has been one who's been using the internet in a powerful way for soul winning and evangelism to the French-speaking world. He basically has put together a YouTube channel, and how many of you have seen his stuff on YouTube in French? Pierre Paul, what's it called? It's like Christ de la vie or something. Say it. En Christ de la vie, you know. So he has a channel, and it's not just him, but some other people as well over the years have helped us translating stuff into French. And his YouTube channel has like 350,000 views of French materials, French language stuff. And also, you know, they participated in the Soul Winning Mega Marathon in France. The first time they participated, they had 3 guys show up. The second time, 15 guys showed up. Okay, so the videos are working. The internet stuff's working. So I'm going to have him come at this time and talk a little bit about what he's doing, because I would love to see other people who live in other countries kind of do this, be like this guy, all right? Do what this guy's doing.
Okay, thank you. It's a blessing to be here. Sorry for my accent. Okay, I'm French. I thank Pastor Anderson for this opportunity to talk about this very important subject of internet technology and evangelism. I just want to read 2 verses about Acts chapter 2. The verse number 8, who said, "And out here we every man in our own tongue wherein we were born." And the verse number 11, "Cretes and Arabians, we do hear them speak in our tongues the wonderful works of God." So I love this verse because those verses could be applied to this matter. The verse number 8, it's written our own tongue. So in Europe or other countries, we don't speak English. It's our duty to speak the word of God in our own tongue. It's our responsibility to give access to the gospel. In verse number 11, it's written, "Cretes and Arabians, we do hear them speak in our tongues the wonderful works of God." So the gospel proclaims the wonderful works of God. So we need to proclaim the gospel in our own language. That's why we are here today. I want to share with you my own experience of how to use internet technology to evangelize. I've created, Pastor Anderson talk about that, but more than 2 years ago, YouTube channels, Facebook pages, on the website. We are several people to work on it, my wife and some brothers. In order to encourage you to do that, I will give you some numbers, but Pastor Anderson said about that. But we have three YouTube channels, and altogether they got more than 350,000 views. The Facebook page have more than 50,000 views of videos, and we also have a website. So I encourage you to create in your language a YouTube channel, a Facebook page, and a website. The first thing to do is to create a name for your ministry, because it's more easy for people to find you, and they can connect all your platforms. So use the same name for all your platforms. It could be nice because people will find you. On your YouTube channel, I encourage you to upload different types of videos, like Framing the Word movies. You can translate it. Some translation of important sermons and impacting short videos could be nice too. For example, the short videos that Pastor Anderson upload on his channel could be great to translate. So it's important to learn how to translate. You can find some videos on YouTube to learn about that. Maybe in Spanish, in Danish, whatever. You can find videos to learn how to translate videos. And you can make some video in your language by recording yourself about the gospel. For example, with Brother Arthur, it's a brother from France, we have made a series of 30 videos about salvation. It was called Salvation Moment. It could be very important to do that in order to lay a foundation of the true gospel in your country. You can talk about how to be saved, it's by faith, not work, eternal security, the free gift, the Trinity, or videos to debunk the false gospel or false teaching, because people will can hear the true gospel with your videos. I encourage you to make videos of exposing false prophets in your country, because those videos will attract people. Then YouTube is a great tool to share the gospel in your language, and you make the truth accessible to all men. Isn't that our duty? Because maybe you will not have so much views, but you make the truth accessible. So it's our duty to make the truth accessible. On YouTube, it's important to use good thumbnails. I will skip this passage, but a good title, good thumbnails, it's important to work on that. it's important to have a Facebook page, so you can make a YouTube channel, but a Facebook page. On the Facebook page, you can upload your videos, and after that, you can share your videos on Facebook groups. I do that I do that in the French group. I upload my videos on Facebook, and after that, I share on Facebook groups. You can do that in your own language because people will see your videos in Facebook groups. So Facebook is a great tool to share the truth because you can share your video on Facebook groups, you can reach a lot of people, and you give the possibility to people to hear the true gospel. That's why I do that. In the last point, you can create a website where you can share videos, articles, on information. As a website is important because some people will search website, not videos. So that's what I want to say. I very encourage you, if you are in Sweden, Denmark, Austria, German, because there are a lot of false prophets. They need, this country needs the true gospel, so it's our duty to do that. Okay, thank you.
All right, amen. Thank you. So Brother Pierre and I were talking, and he said that I think one of his top viewed videos, or maybe it was the most top viewed video, was him exposing some false prophet in France. So sometimes rebuking some false prophet can end up, especially a false prophet that's relevant to a certain location, can help you get the attention of those people in that location. Like I ripped on TB Joshua for a while back, and then all the Nigerians are all, seeing that. Because we don't know who that is, but that's a big guy in Nigeria. Okay. So one other thing I want to bring up, so we talked about YouTube, Facebook, foreign language stuff, is MP3s. And you say, MP3s? Like, what in the world? I thought we're on to video now. But what you have to understand is that if you're going to use the internet to get the gospel to people in other countries, a lot of them are going to have slow internet in a lot of these places. So don't stop uploading the MP3s, because I know that when I start to slack a little bit on uploading the MP3s on our church website, then I'll get a bunch of people from other countries like, I don't have the bandwidth for YouTube. You got to put up these MP3s, I need those. Because some people, man, they're paying by the megabyte or whatever. And so you also want to have a website besides just the YouTube and Facebook. Upload MP3s of the preaching to your website, because the foreigners, they're going to use that stuff. They're going to need that stuff because it's an easier way to do that because of the bandwidth. So at this time, I want to take questions and help you out with any questions that you might have about this subject. So who's got a question? And then we'll just keep passing the mic around.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about YouTube alternatives like BitChute and other places like that. As YouTube starts clamping down more and more, and Facebook starts clamping down more and more, have you said, "Hey, this is the next spot we're going to," or something that you're already starting up? I mean, what alternatives do you see?
Well, I'm for the alternatives, BitChute. We have a whole bunch of stuff on BitChute. We have multiple BitChute channels. I will say this, the alternatives are harder to use than YouTube. It took me it took me many hours to set up my BitChute account. I had to figure out how to buy Bitcoins and then pay BitChute with Bitcoins, and it was complicated. But anyway, those, in my opinion, will never replace YouTube or Facebook, because you know what? Very few people are on those compared to YouTube. I mean, let's face it, the world is on YouTube and Facebook. So if you really want to have a mass influence, you got to be on the big sites. You got to be on YouTube and Facebook. So, I'm all for putting the really hard stuff on BitChute and pointing people to that. And plus, you're going to kind of reach that little BitChute crowd, or that, what are the other ones? Brighteon is another one we use, BitChute. We're on 5 of them or something. But those will not replace YouTube. I don't care how much YouTube clamps down. They're never going to be able to get me off of YouTube, because I'm always going to find a way. Even if I have to use a voice changer or something, I'm going to be like, turn in your Bibles to Daniel chapter 5. I'll be using a voice changer. My face will be shaded. I'll be like a witness protection preacher. So because let's face it, the goal is to get this stuff out. YouTube is where the masses are. Facebook. So I'm for the alternatives as a supplement, but if all you're going to do is put your stuff on the alternative stuff, well, then just plan on reaching very few people. If you want to go big, you better be on YouTube and Facebook and the big name places. Any other questions?
How do you live stream to multiple accounts at the same time?
Great question. How do I live stream to multiple accounts at the same time? Caster.io. CASTR.io. Okay. And this is so cool. You can go to several YouTube channels at once, Vimeo, and up to 5 Facebook accounts at once. Well, guess what? We stream to about 20 Facebook pages every service. How do we do that? Here's what we do. I go on caster.io and I stream to my personal Facebook, Stephen Anderson. I stream to my other personal Facebook, Stephen Lee Anderson. And then I stream to the Faithful Word Baptist Church YouTube page. But when you stream to a page, if you go to settings, so you set up your live stream for Facebook, and you go to settings and you can do what's called cross-posting. And then it lists like 20 other pages that are associated with my Facebook account, and I just check which ones I want to stream to. So every time I preach a sermon here, I'm streaming to YouTube, I'm streaming to Vimeo, and with the same, because caster.io is what's doing it all. So I stream to YouTube, Vimeo, personal Facebook, other personal Facebook, Faithful Word Baptist Church, and then I check all the boxes to cross-post to After the Tribulation page, New World Order Bible Versions page, Going Back to the Greek page, Babylon USA page, Marxist Lucifer King page, Failure to Obey page, Truth About Buddhism page, Truth About Hinduism page, just down the list, okay? So what you can do is you can create Facebook pages for documentaries that your church produces, or you can produce Facebook pages and groups just about a certain subject. You could just create like some Second Amendment memes or something. Second Amendment memes and put out a bunch of memes or something, right? Build up a few thousand followers, and now when you live stream your sermon, stream it to your church and stream it to that page. Just hit them with preaching. So we're, and I noticed that when I started streaming to 20 Facebook pages instead, I was just streaming to one Facebook from my cell phone. Now I'm taking the high quality feed that we have on YouTube, streaming that to 20 Facebook pages, and our Facebook viewership has gone through the roof. Like we have like 8 times as many people watching on Facebook as we used to. So, because when you're going to 20 pages and you have a higher quality and everything. So castr.io, the most expensive package is $40 a month. There's no equipment to buy or anything. It's just the same equipment you're streaming to YouTube with. Instead of streaming to YouTube, you stream to Caster. And it's sort of like, let me explain it this way, like this is Caster and this is you, right? You're basically just sending like one beam of light to Caster, and then Caster's like a prism just sending it out everywhere else. So it doesn't take any extra CPU or bandwidth. You're still just sending out one feed. Caster just multiplies it and sends it to YouTube, Facebook, Vimeo, and anywhere else. So you can stream to like 20-some places. That's what we've been doing. It's really been helping. So, good question. Any other questions? Get him the mic. Wait for the mic. Wait. All right.
Recommended places to find language translators?
Okay, great question. Where do you find people to do language translations? Well, if you're looking for the cheap option and it's just something short, Fiverr.com, Fiverr.com. This is where you hire people to do things for $5. But typically, you can pay $20, $30, $40 for something a little longer. So I get a lot of translations done just on Fiverr.com if I just need a quick thing or whatever. It's usually pretty good. But if you really want a high quality translation, or you're really doing a long project, like when I have people translate like an entire movie or something, then I go to a website called Proz.com. That's Proz.com. You're going to pay more. You're going to get a higher quality. It's a more professional website. So Proz.com for the really professional stuff. And then Fiverr is just the one-stop, easy shop for most translating. And here's what I did. A while back, I invested the money to get a whole bunch of professional translations done. because then that brings in a new audience of those places, and then you start getting volunteers. You get guys like Pierre and Kevin here and Olivier and Artur and all those guys. Once you get them, you got those kind of listeners, then they're doing it as a volunteer, and then it just starts to snowball. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even have to pay. I don't even pay him. He just does it. It's awesome. So the point is, like, we've done a mix. We've paid people to do stuff, and then, volunteers who are doing it from the heart jump in and do it, and it just snowballs, and it's great. So, over here, we'll hit him next.
I just had a more, it's not so much a question, it's just more of an idea, is that I just thought it would be really great if you guys could do a video that would like go through like a starter pack, like, hey, get this camera, get this mic, let me just take you through, let me show you how to use it, let me show you how to upload this, and then just something real fast so you can get people just started. Just
as far as the equipment needed and stuff, yeah. Yeah, a lot of those tutorials are already out there. We should just put together a starter pack maybe where we point to the experts that could even break those things down for you on just how to live stream, what equipment to buy, stuff like that. And we're all kind of figuring it out as we go along too. Like, we just learned about Caster recently. We learned about it from Paul Wittenberger. He figured that out. And so just keep learning about new things.
So a lot of young people are not on Facebook. They're mostly on Instagram. Do you do anything on there or have any methods on?
I'm already outdated. I'm already just this old fogey. What? No, I know. Now Brother Ramon, he runs an Instagram page for our church. I have an Instagram, but and I like Instagram. But the problem with Instagram is that I can't put a full-length sermon on Instagram because it's like a 90-second or 60-second limit on videos. So what I did recently is I sat down and I just scanned through my entire YouTube channel of 6,000 videos, and I just found like everything I could find that was less than a minute long, which wasn't much, but I found like 30 or 40 little clips, and I've been uploading those. But I just don't know if Instagram is the right fit for our church, because it's like, what do you suggest, man? Help me out. I'm asking you. On Instagram?
I've watched like pretty long.
Okay, well, they're saying Instagram's changing. Now we can do longer videos.
Yeah, there's a setting.
IGTV. Well, let me write this down, man. I'm learning. This seminar's teaching me stuff. So IGTV, I got to get on that. Okay, cool. Well, good. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, you're right, though. It's like basically the old fogies are on Twitter, and then people my age are on Facebook, and then the young guys, they're on Instagram and stuff like that. So yeah, you're right. I mean, we gotta do everything, and so I've got some followers on Instagram, but I just haven't had as much success on there. But I'm just too old. I don't get it. It's a generation gap. All right, any other questions?
Yeah, I noticed lots of companies use like phone apps. I don't know exactly what it is. I mean, is there any possibility we can?
Yeah, the phone.
Get some apps on their cell phone and.
Yeah, no, that's good. Cell phone apps are great. Here's the thing about that. I was creating an app for our church, and the lady called me, the sales lady, and she wanted to sell me this app. And I said, you know what? I'm interested in the app, but can you just tell me that you're not going to shut down my app because of hate speech or whatever? And so, I told her the kind of stuff I preach. I told her what we have going on. And she talked to her supervisors and everything, and she said, you know what? We're not going to shut you down. iTunes might take you out of the Apple Store, or Android might shut you down. But she's like, we're not going to shut you down. We're okay with what you preach and whatever, right? Because they were like a Christian company. And then I spent all this time and energy and money building this app with my staff, and they were helping me and everything. And then 4 months later, they shut us down after they promised that they weren't going to. So the problem with using an app company like that is that they shut us down. Now, there's another app, there's another Faithful Word app that's like a fan-made Faithful Word app that still works on there, because they actually built their own app from scratch, so that it's not a company that can shut them down. So we do have a Faithful Word app that has a lot of preaching, and it's not our church's official app or anything, but it's called Faithful Word. It's got a lot of preaching and stuff. And you know what? Those guys that have worked on that app have said that it gets a lot of views from, it's getting a lot of downloads from China and East Asia, and so they were really blown away by how many people all over the world on the stats were using it. So yeah, if your church can build an app, that's great, but I'm just warning you that if you use one of these app companies, you could get shut down for hate speech or whatever as soon as you get in the media and stuff. But if you have some really computer gurus in your church, you could build like your own app. I mean, I'm for it. So.
Just to tag on to what the young gentleman said over here, talking about Instagram and reaching out to a younger crowd, have you considered Twitch.tv as a platform? It's a really young platform. It's mostly predominantly gaming, for example, but they have expanded into a lot of other hobby realms. And I know one of the categories actually just says like just chatting, for example. So I'm not sure if the church would be able to get
that
into
sounds great. And by the way, Caster.io supports Twitch. So you can be to Facebook, Vimeo, YouTube, and Twitch too. So we need to set up a Twitch account. So Brother Segura, set us up, all right? Get us on Twitch. Twitch.tv. What kind of a name is that? All right, any other questions? Watch me on Twitch. Right here.
What do you think? This idea just came to mind, using Instagram. So I haven't seen your page on Hinduism or Buddhism, but using Instagram, if you were at the door soul winning and you were talking to someone who was a Muslim or someone who was a Hindu, and you just took those little 60-second clips to ask them questions or address areas like Muslims struggle with the concept of the Trinity. So just something.
You mean like do a short little interview or something, a little video?
Yeah, like you give them a gospel, but maybe they would be willing to take a bit to explain the areas that they struggle with why to believe in Christ or not. And that sort of space perhaps could create a page where you're making it very multicultural and also showing.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of ideas. I mean, it's just, you know, there's a lot of things that we've never tried, and just there's just an infinite number of ideas that you can do. And I think that we should be trying to stay on the cutting edge as much as we can, and any of these new sites, because we don't want to be like the old IFB where the old IFB used to be cutting edge. I mean, they were like recording their sermons on reel to reel and making records, you know. And they were like putting out cassettes of their preaching and CDs and stuff. But then it's like they got stuck. And now they've kind of been left behind. And they're not really using YouTube to its potential. And they're not really using the technology. So we don't want to just get like stuck on YouTube and Facebook. And then like 20 years from now, I'm going to be like, all right, you got to use YouTube. You know, YouTube's going to reach for this. It's like... They're like, dude, nobody's on YouTube anymore, man. It's Twitch TV. So, yeah, got to keep moving forward. Any other questions? I've been preaching for 1,000 years on YouTube. Any other questions about the technology, about YouTube, Facebook? Don't ask me about Twitter, because that's for old fogies. I don't know anything about that. All right, very good. I'm glad that I've been able to just satisfy everyone. Everyone just fully understands everything. So my work here is done. All right, let's have a word of prayer and be closed. Dear Lord, we thank you so much for the people that are at this conference and for all the things that we've heard so far. Lord, help us to be effective, Lord. Help us to be not only just excited and motivated, but also just to have the tools to be effective, Lord. And I just pray that you'd bless the rest of the conference, Lord. Bless the preaching tonight. Bless the soul winning this afternoon. And just, Lord, I just pray that many great works would happen, many great missions trips, And many people would be saved as a result of the events of this week. And in Jesus' name we pray, amen. All right, we're dismissed. So there's going to be an opportunity for some soul winning in just a few minutes here. Brother Segura is going to be in the back with assignments for that. Brother Segura, do you have the Little India soul winning mapped out? Yeah, so the Little India is like a first come, first served because there's not a whole lot of Little India complexes for us to hit. But if you want to go to Little India, you can hit him up. He can give you those maps. Otherwise, we can send you to other just soul winning in this area. And then the next actually scheduled event after the soul winning is going to be the testimonies from Asia. So at 5:30, we're going to hear testimonies from Asia. If you want to do a testimony, please sign up on the sheet in the back. So if you were born there, if you spent a lot of time there, like you lived there for a long time, or if you speak the language, if you're an Asian, be sure to sign up and give a testimony tonight at 5:30. And then, of course, the main event is the 7 o'clock service tonight with Pastor Roger Jimenez preaching. You definitely don't want to miss that. All right? We're dismissed.
I think I didn't made a quick Twitch account. I thought it was too weird. I didn't want to do it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
well, you got to resurrect that.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
A language question.
Okay, sure.
I didn't want to put on anything because I didn't want to create any controversy.
Yeah.
So you know, I've heard a sermon where you preach that. Japan. Say Japan. I knew how to say Japan. I thought you might have just been sounding it out. No, it's like, okay.